It's all over, folks. 2025 Phillies season is all over after Game 4's. I mean, I've used the word excruciating, I think, in every game in this series, but it's apt. The excruciating Game 4 loss on Thursday to the Dodgers, 2-1 in 11 innings that ended in one of the most bizarre, hurtful, crazy, maniacal, sadistic ways that you could ever end a season, let alone a baseball game. That's what happened in Dodger Stadium on Thursday night as the Phillies lose in 4 games in the NLDS once again, the 4th straight year not Super Bowl hopes, World Series hopes are dashed. Super Bowl hopes are probably
you can go ahead and dash those point. Super Bowl hopes. Yeah. Just take those off the board.
Just go right ahead. Do it, please.
I think you're probably right. But here we are. Here we are on a roundtable edition of the podcast. We didn't want to do it last night after the game because I think everybody just wanted a chance to rest and sleep on that game a little bit. But we are recording here on Friday afternoon, and we're going to try and make sense of this whole thing, and we'll look ahead just a little bit, but there obviously will be plenty of time for that here over the next few weeks. Justin Klugh and Liz Roscher joining me here. Justin, from Baseball Prospectus, of course, and also our Hit and Season Patreon podcast, The Dirty Inning and Absolutely Hammered. And right now, you want as much Phillies content as you can possibly get your hands on. So make sure you head on over to patreon.com/hitandseason to get all that good stuff. Justin, I mean, I would ask how you're feeling, and I guess that's a good question, given that we've been through this a number of times before, and this is a very different way.
Yeah, this is more just a sadness that the Phillies really couldn't do it, like in 4 tries. They really couldn't do it. I was up there for games 1 and 2 and wound up writing what was like 3,000 words that I wound up cutting down to about 1,600 just about how this team refused to be a part of any kind of narrative. And that was something of a strength. I don't know if I'd even call it even a little bit of a weakness, but they certainly adhered to that to the end, where it just seemed like there's a million ways these things can go, and the Phillies choose a way no one seemed to have been able to imagine. That's just kind of how it goes. But what I'm sad about is that I'm just tired of feeling this way at this point. And you could put a positive spin on that and say, well, hey, this is what it's like being a team that we think the Phillies are now, a franchise. The Phillies are now a team that has graduated to the level of like always contending at least a little bit or never not contending for very long. This is what life is like for those teams, for those Cardinals teams for long stretches, those Giants teams for long stretches, the Dodgers now. The postseason almost becomes like the regular season, and that you're like, yeah, all right, well, we'll get them next year. And you don't have that little thing of like, what if they don't get back next year? Obviously, for the Phillies this year, it's a little different. There's roster changes coming, and it'll be a different team next year. But the whole point is you're not starting, blowing things up and rebuilding, which I see a lot of people talking about.
Why?
Yeah.
You're staying close, and when you stay close, and you always have a shot, you go to the postseason a lot, and you don't win it a lot. You don't win it all a lot. So you could look at it positively. That's probably the last time I will do so on this episode of this show. And for vibes, I also we brought milkshake for the vibes.
Oh, good milkshake. There he is. She is.
He is.
There he is.
At the end of the podcast, I'll give you a peek at the dog that I am dog sitting all this week.
Yeah.
She refuses to come into the frame so I can do anything. She's tired of me because I needed to do this instead of taking her out for a walk.
Well, I mean, Liz Roscher, you are the editor for Sabres Baseball Research Journal, and last night's loss with Orion Kerkering throwing that ball away, ending the series on an error, was historic. And so I wonder how many chapters in the edition of the Baseball Research Journal will be devoted to this historical moment, not only in Phillies history, but in baseball history.
I mean, I'll take any and all pitches, write it up and send it to me. Write it up and email me or whatever, and I will get you to the right place. Wow. I personally don't pick the articles. They're peer reviewed, but I could choose which ones to get through to that stage. So,
well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't think I mentioned at the top because, like Orion Kerkering, I was frazzled for just a few moments there. But we are with WHYY. This is Hitting Season, and I just thought I'd squeeze that in here.
Right.
Thank you. I'm a professional at this, for crying out loud. I mean, I really,
You really tossed that opening 3-4 feet away from where you were going, huh?
yeah, it hit the back. The opening hit the backstop. It's just the way it goes sometimes when you're not.
I was standing there like pointing at you to say the
At the
opening.
beginning, John.
And
At the
you were
beginning.
just like, nope, got to do it this way.
Yep. No, I figured right here it was closer, so I could just do it right here.
Does it matter?
No, it
Truly doesn't, right? During this
No,
episode.
ultimately, the amount of mistakes we've made in this episode, creating the ultimate failure that it was,
Right.
will be at fault for rather than just that one singular mistake.
We were always going to lose this podcast. There's just no
Right,
way.
yeah.
There's no way we were winning this podcast.
We were missing Liz for like the back half of the season due to that injury. So what were our chances anyway?
That's right.
Oh God.
All right. Well, I mean, it is. I mean, this was one of those things where, I mean, there's different stages of feelings after each of these 4 seasons, right? I think after 2022, most of us felt it was disappointing, but it was more of like a grateful feeling, and like we couldn't wait to look back on all the moments that led up to it, and you felt like this is something to build on, and it was something to build on. And then in 2023,
I think what I said at the time was, "My heart is not broken; it is full."
There you
That's
go.
how emotional and wholesome I was feeling at that
you
time.
were.
Man.
Yeah, that was
Feel
beautiful.
different now.
Yes.
Go back to that is impossible, and I think the crowd is always wanting to go back to that, where there's just incredible moment after incredible moment, and unfortunately most playoff teams are totally like that. But if your team isn't giving you those incredible moments, that's a sign.
Well, and it's like you said, it is impossible to go back to that moment where you're the upstarts and you're going on an improbable run because there's no pressure on you, right? And the Phillies these last few years played as if they had all the pressure on them. And I don't know that, we could dive into the psychoanalysis of all the players and what's going on in their heads and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, they went from a wonderful run in 2022 and they looked like they were on another wonderful run in 2023 until the pressure got to them. Then, they realized, hey, geez, we're 1 win away from the World Series. This is and they folded. That series destroyed them. And so I think after that one, we were more like shocked or like and crushed after that series loss. And then against the Mets last year, we were just mad that the Phillies did what they did and just played with no heart against a divisional rival. And this year, I think the feeling is sadness because after 96 wins, a National League East title that you won by 13 games over the Mets, 7 straight years in which you as a franchise have increased your win total, which is a major league record. This season ends with more heartbreak, more sadness, more despondency, and even more questions about the future and the direction of this franchise because a number of players that we've come to know and love are not going to be here after this. Many will be. Many are here on long-term contracts that you can't do anything with, even if you wanted to. And with a lot of these guys who have come up small in the postseason, you don't necessarily want to move on from them because they're your stars. Unless you want to go back to a rebuild, you kind of have to keep some of these things in place. So, I just, Justin, I mean, as we think about this team, I mean, the psychology has to spur on change, right? They can't go into next season running it back. And Jason Stark of The Athletic wrote this on Friday as well. Like they can't run it back again. They can't come back with as many of these same players returning. If for no other reason, yes, we've seen physically what they're incapable of doing, but just now the psychological impact of falling short each and every year and the way this thing ended, there's just no way big changes aren't coming.
Yeah. I don't think that's a particularly hot take. I think we've known that was the case. 2 big free agents, a couple other smaller free agents. People have been assuming Ranger Suarez is just gone. There's been no one thinks that he's coming back. So yeah, I think it's almost like it's set up that way. Some of these guys they signed these guys to deals that sort of parallel what they envisioned to be a window. When you signed Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos in the same offseason, then yeah, you're thinking these are guys that are going to help us win a World Series, and therefore the lengths of their deals are kind of considered a window of sorts because they will be fundamental members of this offense. And when the time comes for them to either re-sign or go, we'll have probably accomplished something. The idea is that we will have accomplished something by then. That is kind of like the parameters of these windows. So that's kind of what I've been struggling with is just so we've picked something to kind of focus on every time they've been eliminated in the postseason. Say, well, they got to do this to address that, and they got to do this to address that. And I think this year, yeah, I mean, you do kind of. How many times does this group of guys, like, if you gave them infinite chances, how many times would it take to win a World Series? I mean, eventually they would, but also in that scenario, they're not, I guess they can't be aging. So you got to factor in, like, how their games are evolving or devolving as well. And you're just looking at a group of guys who, and we're going to, like, talk about what's to blame and what's not. And, collectively, there was just a big mess and everything. But, like, they went 0 for 4. They had 4 really good chances to win a World Series, and they went 0 for 4. Couldn't do it for a variety of reasons. They couldn't do it. Largely comes down to just not hitting when they're supposed to hit. And I kind of looked into this a little bit, if you don't mind me expanding this answer even further. But I started thinking, okay, so like if the issue last year was, they keep chasing pitches out of the zone and they need a better plate approach, and we just got to get Jerks and Provar, and then all those problems will be solved. But this year, I kind of concluded, maybe the Phillies just can't hit good pitching.
Yeah.
Now, that's not just like a Phillies problem. The reason a pitcher is good is because people struggle against them. But I guess I'll just point out a statistical note that I found, which was I was looking at a list of I looked at the best pitchers in the National League. I just went by ERA because I was doing a grab bag. It's not the best statistic for something like this, but that's what I used. Top 30 lowest NL ERAs, and I put all those guys in a list and looked at their numbers specifically against the Phillies. And then I limited it even further based on like exposure to them, because you face a lot of guys one time and never again. So at least 7 innings of work against the Phillies with guys who had some of the top ERAs in the National League. You wind up with 11 guys. 2 of those guys were on playoff teams. And those are the guys, like of these guys the Phillies faced. They struggled against pretty much every guy that you would consider a good pitcher. There's no like guy that they were like, they really had his number. Like obviously Skeens mowed him down. Mackenzie Gore crushed him on opening day, and he wound up not even really having that good of a season. But like as far as good pitchers who the Phillies could hit this year, you're looking more at guys like Justin Verlander, Robbie Ray, like that level of guy. Landon Roop of the Giants. Not even sure I said his name right. Andrew Abbott of the Reds. Like that's the level of guy that the Phillies, like those are the best pitchers the Phillies have had good numbers against. And I think part of that also is that you were seeing a Dodgers team at full strength for pretty much the full time. Blake Snell's not on that list because he pitched in 11 games this year in the regular season. Just 11. That's a fresh arm for the playoffs. And the Phillies got killed by him every time. So the Dodgers having their pitching, Roki Sasaki coming back full strength, Dodgers having all these pitchers that are suddenly ready to go and the top of the game, which is like what the Phillies were kind of hoping Aaron Nola was going to be when he came back, and what Andrew Painter could have been if he popped up. But the Dodgers got that, and the Phillies aren't good against really good pitchers, and that's what happened. So the answer to that is get better at hitting the league's best pitching, but also you're probably going to be doing it somewhere else.
Yeah, and I imagine that against for a lot of teams, their numbers against the best starting pitching is also going to be pretty low. But we saw it in this series, and we've seen it all year how the Phillies really struggled against good starters, Liz. I mean, and that was something that I just don't know how we fix. And I want to get into the big fixes later, but like just in terms of kind of moving forward with this group and the psychology. I mean, like I don't know how much can you. How much can you run back? Like how big, just without getting into specifics, how big do the changes need to be really?
I mean, you'll have to convince me that they're going to make a lot of big changes aside from the ones it seem like are already going to be done. Like what, can they put a better team together than this?
Why not?
It's a good,
but how?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's kind of my thing.
Putting trades together. I mean, using Dave Dombrowski for what he's for. That's what he's here for. He built this team. Why can't he build another one?
True. I'm just trying to think of players specifically that would make the team better, that would not make them worse due to the cost of the trade. Because if you're looking for a major league guy, you're going to have to send a couple of major league guys along with prospects. So I'm just thinking, like, what kind of changes do we need? Like, we know that this group of guys can do it and could do it. Just because they haven't doesn't mean that they are physically unable to. But I keep coming back to the fact that we'd sign up for this every year, no matter what the outcome is. And at this point in my life, I just sort of have to accept that they tried their hardest and it wasn't good enough. Things just didn't go right. Whether it was them, whether it was the situation, it's usually a combination of the two. But what do? Like, you put them on a different day, you put them at a different times, things might be different. So I'm just trying to.
I don't know about that because they've
I don't
had
know.
three
I'm just
different
trying
seasons,
to reconcile.
You know, I mean, it's three. If this was just this series, I could argue that that's right. But I mean, you've got 3 different seasons in 3 years. I mean, 3-10 in their last 13 playoff games. And it's largely the same guys doing the same things wrong. I mean, that's where I'm butting my head up against. And maybe it is just like the this particular group, the way they all have the same foibles. But, you know, you've got a bunch of guys in this lineup who can't hit pitchers who throw from a certain arm. Like, you know, if
Fair.
it's just too much of that. There's too much of that in this lineup. But I mean, you come back to the big 3 of Turner, Harper, Schwarber. Those are your 3 culprits. And I think Liz's point is that those are the 3 guys who aren't going away. I mean,
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. They're actually going to re-sign. I mean, if all sides point to yes, they're going to re-sign one of those guys.
Schwarber.
That had trouble. They're going to re-sign him because his overall value is worth it, despite this, you know, the playoff outage.
So you look at your roster at that point, and if you really think that's the point you're at, then you say, okay, instead of these guys being the big 3, Bryce Harper's now a supporting player in the offense. Kyle Schwarber we're looking at for power and nothing else, and Trey Turner, I mean, he's coming off the batting title and improved defense, so I don't know how far down we really want to consider him having tumbled. But then when you're considering players that you want to acquire, you're looking at, all right, we're looking for a new guy to fill out our big 3. That's why we're going to give Kyle Tucker a bunch of money or something. Like, you're recasting players, and then you're recasting the types of players you're then going and acquiring. If you're going out there and thinking, well, we have a big 3, so let's just swap out our supporting cast for more supporting cast members who can't hit guys who throw left or can't play well in day games or don't know where their helmet is half the time, have some exploitable flaw that's just a different exploitable flaw than the guys who are already here, then yeah, you're going to get more of the same. But this is the point of this being a different team isn't just that the players are going to be different. The players who are still here are also different players from when they signed and joined the Phillies. So you got to keep that in mind when you're building this next roster too. And that kind of opens the door for different types of players because you're not looking out there for another Kyle Schwarber if you lose him. There is no other Kyle Schwarber. So you're kind of changing the entire philosophy of the team at that point. You're changing what kind of team it is. And I think that's something you got to consider when you're building this next version of the Phillies.
Yeah. And Justin Crawford will be here. Aiden Miller, we'll see, you know, but I mean, again, I don't want to, I mean, we can get into the specifics because Dave Dombrowski is going to address the media early next week, I'm sure. And we'll probably get some answers on that. We'll get some answers on the manager and whether the manager will be back. I've got serious doubts that Rob Thomson will be back next year after this.
I can see him retiring, honestly.
Yeah, I think he could retire. I mean, I heard somebody say about Rob Thomson, he's a fantastic regular season manager, exactly the kind of guy you want for the regular season and for the playoffs, not that guy, you know, and that may or may not be true. I don't know.
I feel like that it does feel true, if only because he turns into a different guy.
Yeah, it's a little bit of
his
panic.
Decisions are just different.
Yeah.
I just a quick note also that I'll throw in there. We mentioned Harper. I would, and like what we're going to hear at the end of the season, I'm not going to be surprised if we get a little note a couple days from now that Bryce Harper was really dealing with some right wrist inflammation for the rest of the
that's happening.
Because his antidote for that was, well, if I just swing at every pitch as hard as I can, something might make contact, and then it'll happen. I think that was his whole plan in the postseason, and it did not work.
No. I want to have at some point a very serious conversation about where Bryce Harper is in his career and his abilities and what he might be moving forward, because he has been the superstar on this team. But we'll leave that for another podcast. I do want to talk about the series. I want to talk about the game a little bit. And I don't think Orion Kerkering and what happened, that he was the main reason even they lost this game on Thursday night. I mean, it's the ultimate play that ended the season, and I felt so bad.
He's going to feel real bad for a long time. He's going to feel terrible.
And I'm heartened that most Phillies fans, I think, feel sorry for him and aren't throwing all of the blame for this at him. I don't know how he can come back and pitch for the Phillies after this. Like, that's going to be really, really difficult for him to pitch effectively, but he might be able to do that. I'd love to think he can. But it's what I mean, just an utterly shocking way to lose. That ball comes right back to him. As soon as he kind of fumbled it a little bit, you could see the hamster in the wheel kind of start going into overdrive there. He reminds me of like a kid in my son's kid pitch little league who, gets a ball hit to him at second base, and somebody's, they catch a ball and somebody's running, and he wants him to take it, and everybody starts screaming at him, throw it to third, throw it to second, throw it. What? And then they just throw it over the fence in left field because they get so rattled and they don't know what to do with the ball when it comes to them. And that's what happened to Kerkering in that spot. He doesn't field the grounder back to him cleanly. He's trying to locate it. And at this point, utter panic sets in for this poor man. And
it's because he knows it's over.
And the clock is running in his head. How much time do I have to get the guy out? How much time do I have to get the guy out? And so he, I'm sure, is not thinking, even though Real Muto's pointing a certain direction for him to go to first, he's not hearing Real Muto. He can't see, he's just on survival mode in that moment. And ultimately, the sad thing is the runner missed home plate. And if he'd actually thrown it to JT Real Muto, I think the runner's out. But it goes 4.5 feet over everyone's head, and the season was over. But again, Liz, that's not the reason they lost this game, but just your reaction when that happened.
I mean, it's the moment that hurt the most.
Yes.
I think the one single moment where you could see it all slip away, but it wasn't the reason that they lost. They had chance after chance. They were getting guys on base. They were doing it. They were making some attempts, and they could have gone well. But a number, just like the night before, a number of scoring chances were just completely wasted by the offense. It was really frustrating, especially since the pitching continued to be so good.
Well,
on a human level, I thought generally the response of fans has been very he'll probably get if he comes back he'll probably get a standing O, and his teammates reading the story about how Castellanos and Real Muto both immediately ran to him and put their arms around him just because they knew that was going to be hitting him hard. That is wonderful. It's exactly how you want your team to react in that situation. Here's the thing, though. You compared it to a confused child, and I don't think that's a fair comparison. It's a tough situation, the hardest situation. They were playing footage from the Roy Halladay's no-hitter, and that play Chooch makes at the end of the game is, he makes it look simple, but that is a really hard play.
Oh my gosh,
the same general area that Kerkering had to field. And you're right, there's loud circus music going off in his head. And it's great to see everyone saying you can't put all the blame on him. Here's the thing. You got to make that play. You are a Major League Baseball player. Of course it's hard. Could I make that play? No. 10 times out of 10. I'm not making that play.
Right.
You are a professional baseball player. You don't know you got to know what you're doing with the ball before it gets to you. I'm repeating every coach that's ever lived. And I'm not saying that to Orion Kerkering because he knows. And I get in that moment, but the whole point is in that moment, if you're going to win a World Series, you are good enough to win that moment. And I know it's not fair to put all the blame on him, and I'm not.
Right.
But imagine if that play happens in the 5th inning and the game ends on an ugly Nick Castellanos strikeout or something. Everybody's jumping on Nick Castellanos, but there is probably still an argument of well, that wasn't the reason they blah, blah, blah. But in that argument, then you're saying moments like Orion Kerkering overthrowing home plate are the reasons they lost because it's, not at the end. It's just in somewhere in the middle, like all the things from last night that Liz was talking about. So I think it's great everyone is willing to say he didn't deserve any blame. But I guess you'll have to excuse me from not wanting to cradle him so gently in my arms because his mistake was a part of the mishmash of mistakes that got the Phillies to the position they're in now, which is at home on the couch. Sorry, man, you got to make that play. I'm not saying it's easy or that I could, but you got to make that play.
Well, it is.
End of story.
That's why you're there.
Play. It's fair, and that was an easy play. It just was. If he fields it cleanly, it's a broken bat single right back to him. He scoops it cleanly and throws to first, but if you're going to be a professional athlete trying to win a championship and you want that ball in the 11th inning of a game in which you're going to be eliminated if you lose, you got to have it. You got to slow your heartbeat down. And he just wasn't able to do that. He absolutely deserves blame. I think it's warranted. And you're right, 100%. He has to make that play.
And he knows that too. The other thing is his everything he's said is like, yeah, I mean, again, I'm not trying to make the guy feel bad. It's just an objective truth. Like you got to make that play, man. That's it. And honestly, for anybody who's saying like you got to get rid of him either because they're currently mad at him or like you're saying, John, how does he psychologically come back out there? I got bad news, man. There is not a lot of right-handed pitching depth available for the Phillies in their farm system, or if, like, you want to go out there and make a deal for somebody, that's fine, but the Phillies had an opinion of Orion Kerkering and an idea for his future coming into this season, and I don't know if they really let him go as easily as people are imagining. I mean, he had to warm up multiple times in that inning because there was no other option before he came into a really ugly situation.
And I'm not advocating they do. I'm just saying I question whether he can come back.
Yeah.
I
think, honestly, a kid like Kerkering, this winds up being motivation for him to, like, try and improve. Like, eventually, he winds up just seeing it as, like, and there's going to be, like an Alex Coffey style feature in spring training.
I was literally just thinking we'll get 2 weeks of, we'll get 2 weeks of hardcore Orion Kerkering rehabilitational PR push. And you know what? That's fine.
That's fine.
I think that's great.
Well, they'll talk about what he did and where he went, and maybe he comes back stronger. Maybe he's not on the team anymore. I don't know, but I wonder. I don't think that situation is this situation in total. What happened and what will happen next is more layered than anybody as emotional as we are right now is going to be able to parse out.
Yeah, agree.
I want to get into the offense here in just a second because of all the reasons they lost this series, of all the reasons their season is over. It is the disappearing offense. But I want to talk about the moment that the fewest people seem to be talking about, or the thing that fewest people seem to be talking about, and that's the bases loaded walk by Jhoan Duran that forced in the tying run, and that was a killer. Obviously, because it's what forced extra innings. I mean, you handed the Dodgers a run. The Phillies pitchers did not allow a single hit in this game to score a run. I was joking with Justin on text right before the Kerkering mess up, and we just said, can you imagine if both runs scored in this game it was because they got walked in? Turned out it would be much worse than that, but Jhoan Duran. First, let me ask you, what do you think about the decision? I'll start with you, Liz, to walk Shohei Ohtani intentionally, right? There's 2 outs, runners on second and third. You've got the right-hander Duran against Shohei Ohtani, who's the lefty. Shohei Ohtani has had a miserable postseason, 1 for 18. I think it was 1 for 17 at that point. Was having a miserable postseason, but had only faced a right-handed pitcher, I think, once in the series to that point. And that was Aaron Nola in the first inning. Otherwise, it was all lefties. And so Rob Thomson did not want to have Duran face Ohtani, righty on lefty, and instead loaded the bases because he wanted to go righty-righty with Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is a great player. I still think that was the right decision. But what it did was it left no margin for error for Duran. And Duran, who has never walked anyone with the bases loaded in his career, for whatever reason, can't in that moment find the strike zone. I don't know whether he was afraid of Betts making contact. He was afraid of a big hit. He wanted to get Betts to chase. Whatever it was, after you start off 2-0, that's when you kind of really felt, oh boy, this is not, you've lost control of this plate appearance if you're Jhoan Duran. And so, I don't know, what did you make of the decision to walk Ohtani?
I mean, in the playoffs, Topper likes to make decisions that have part of the outcome already figured out. Like whether it's to the advantage or to not the advantage. Like if you do this, you already know the outcome of the next play. It's going to be bases loaded. And, like I don't know why he wouldn't want to let him face it. He's doing so badly. Does he not trust Jhoan Duran to get him out? I would have. So, even though he's a righty, like, I just don't understand that to begin with. I don't like the decision to load the bases, no matter if he's done it in his career or not. Now you're giving the chance of him walking in a run. You're making those much greater. Much, much greater, because now you've loaded the bases for him. I just didn't like it at all. I didn't understand why he made that decision or what led him to, like, I do understand it, but, like, why limit yourself so much in the playoffs?
Well, on the one hand, I mean, I get him wanting to play the matchups. That's a playoff Rob decision. And I get trusting Duran, probably of all people, to not do exactly what he did. Because when he did it, it was for the first time ever. So I probably trust Duran with the bases loaded in that situation. But the counter to that is how well the Phillies just controlled Ohtani the entire series. He was a non-factor. So, like, are you worried about him, like, this being the moment he puts it together and, you know, that everybody's waiting for? Or I mean, it's not like the top of the Dodgers order. You get past Ohtani and you're like, okay, these are manageable hitters. You know, any one of those guys can beat you. I don't know. It didn't jump out to me as like a particularly egregious decision. But what it did after what happened, you know, the unthinkable, it kind of goes into this bigger reason as to why the Phillies lost, which was, you know, look at how well they were and how well they played in the regular season, how good they were, how many people picked them to win the World Series because of how well they were playing going into the postseason. And one of the big reasons we credited to that was how successful a trade deadline they had when, again, it was pretty much universally agreed the Phillies had the best trade deadline of any team.
Yep.
And then you hit the postseason, and where's your trade deadline? Well, one of them is walking in a run for the first time and deeply impacting the elimination game. The other one pulled his groin and isn't really playing, or at least not in a way that all of his value can be on display, playing in center field. So
and then in the 11th
inning,
inning,
kind of kneecapped.
Well, in the 11th inning, with a chance to knock in Harper from second base, he had Harrison Bader battled, but then chased a ball 2 feet out of the strike zone to end the at bat. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was one of your biggest strengths, one of the things you'd point to as something that really gave this team a boost that wound up just being a non-factor for him in the playoffs. I don't have a conclusion there. That's just
no, it's just
what
reality.
That's just it is. That's what it is.
And one of the factors that led to that run being walked in was the umpire missing that called third strike.
Oh, baby! Did he ever?
Sanchez.
That's sweet of him to apologize. You got to know how little that means after the fact, bud.
Yep, it means literally nothing. It means it's like it actually makes it worse.
Yeah.
What does he do? He meets Christopher it was Sanchez who got the apology. Yeah, and he meets him in the hallway, and he's just like, "Oh, hey, Chris, I just watched the footage from that pitch. Get this, totally out of the zone. Ha, my bad. Crazy, right? Anyway, see you out there. Like,
I don't know.
Great, man. I hope it's great you can sleep at night now. That's fantastic. Well done.
Because we're gonna look at next year once ABS is here, and everyone's gonna say they had that. If they had that last year, Phillies probably win Game 4. I mean, that's how razor close this thing was. So yeah, I think the Juan Duran moment was an enormous moment, that whole inning, obviously, but
Alex Call of all people.
Freaking
For the love of
pitching
God.
around Alex
love
Call.
of God.
Don't put it down the middle or anything.
I can't.
Yeah, him and Kike Hernandez, just giant, annoying bottom of the order rats.
Tommy Edman.
Tommy Edman.
Started on Tommy Edman.
It's
universal power threat, Tommy Edman. Yeah.
The Phillies cannot get these guys out. These horrible guys. Well, and here, Kike Hernandez turns into a monster in the playoffs. Always turns into a monster in the playoffs. I don't know what it is, but he turns into Superman.
Well, and I'll tell you this, the Phillies have a couple guys just like that. Like Brandon Marsh, Bryson Stott, Alec Boehm, they're all of that caliber, right? They're all kind of the same ability, the same kind of production. Andy Pajes, throw him into the mix here. Like, all those guys are the same kind of caliber as those Phillies guys I just mentioned. And yet, those guys find a way to elevate their game in October. And Bryson Stott looked utterly lost in the series. Brandon Marsh didn't do a thing in this series. Boehm had some moments, so you can't really throw as much on Boehm as you can some of the other guys. But he wasn't a world beater in this. Didn't come up with any really big moments. So it's just, again, and that's a good way to transition to the offense here, because this is the reason they lost the series, right? As a whole, overall, you score 3 runs in Game 1, 3 runs in Game 2. You have the nice game in Game 3, and then 1 run in Game 4 in 11 innings. And I get it that the Dodgers pitching was really good. I mean, the stuff was amazing. The starting pitching throughout the series was incredible. The Dodgers' top 4 starting pitchers had a 2.28 ERA in 23 and 2/3 innings as starters and relievers. When the starters were asked to be in the bullpen, those guys did. And the same thing with the Phillies. Matt Gelb noted this in his article on Friday. The Phillies' top 4 starting pitchers, a 2.03 ERA in 26 and 2/3 innings as starters and relievers. Neither offense did anything in this series, with the exception of the Phillies in Game 3. But the Phillies hit 212 in this series against the Dodgers. Dodgers hit 199 in the series, but a few more big hits here and there. The big home run by Teoscar Hernandez in Game 1. Like, you just have these little things that happen. The big moments, the Will Smith 2-run single, right, in Game 2. Just a couple of big moments here and there. That's why you needed someone to just come up at some point and do something. You didn't need the team to hit 300 in this series. Like, the starting pitching was so good, but it ultimately, Justin showed once again, starting pitching is not the most important thing in October. It's offense, it's bullpen, and starting pitching in that order. And in my mind, as long as the Phillies continue to focus all of their energy and effort on starting pitching, this could continue to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's another reason why I'm more ready to see a different Phillies team than before. You know, we would talk about making changes, spent all last offseason talking about trading Alec Boehm, and that, you know, obviously didn't happen, but there's been changes, you know, casually or more aggressively threatened for this roster and this lineup and everything for the past few years. And each time I'm like, you know, ultimately I'd be a little sad to see that guy go, or like, oh, it's a shame to like change things up without this team kind of like having a World Series title to stake to this era. There was a point where I would have even said I don't want Nick Castellanos to go anywhere, because you know, as much as Castellanos-y as he is, he's still like a funny guy to have around who can, you know, who was an all-star at one point for the Phillies. But
yeah,
at this point, I think, like a lot of people, it's played out, you know, and I'm ready to see this roster kind of clear its throat a little bit and see, you know, 4 or 5 new guys, like regulars just in the clubhouse, guys who are here for a reason and to make this team into a different team. Because the more we're talking about it, the more it feels like that's the move, is everything we talked about last year. Like, yeah, change the approach. I think you can just change the approach by like changing who's around to make the approaches and just have guys in and just change what kind of team this is, because I think that's what you do at this point. I think you realize, okay, the kind of team we focused on having just isn't the kind of team that gets it done. You know, you can look at it and be like, oh, we were 2 big moments away from moving on to the next round, which, by the way, I had a hard time remembering that, oh yeah, our reward for winning this series improbably will be 2 more series
of this.
that will probably be just like this for the rest of the month. So again, my body and mind thank the Phillies for getting eliminated.
Oh my God, yeah.
Seeing a different team next year that's got like a little more whiz defensively, a little more pop offensively, you know, that's how you address problems. Like, we were 2 big moments shy of moving on from the NLDS. You don't think, well, let's get in the batting cage. Let's get a guy who hit 2 more home runs than Kyle Schwarber. That guy doesn't exist in the National League. Let's address these things specifically. At this point, I think it's more of a wholesale thing, and I'm not saying a blow up situation. I just mean enough changes to kind of change how this team is put together and how it operates. I'm ready to see something different, and I think the Phillies probably are too. I think that's why this is going to be probably a more interesting offseason than we've seen in a while, because the Phillies are going to be a different team come spring.
So who do we think definitely won't be back? Liz?
I don't think...
Who?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we all got it. It's Nick Castellanos, isn't it?
I don't think Castellanos is going to be here. I honestly, you know, in the past couple weeks, I've been thinking more and more about, well, let's just run through the rest of the list first. I think you could see up to 2 of the 3 out of Boehm, Marsh, and Stott moved as part of a trade somewhere. And I really don't think it's a guarantee that Kyle Schwarber comes back.
I agree 100%. Yep.
I'm honestly starting to think more and more about, you know, again, we got this view from 1,000 miles away, but every statement he's made, and whether it's in text or video, and obviously he's not going to say exactly what's going on, but every response has been aggressively non-committal. And I don't know, I just kind of, this is just my opinion, but I get the feeling that he's ready to move on and just, he's got this kind of Puff the Magic Dragon quality to him, and that he goes where he's needed and like makes a lot of people happy and then moves on. And he's done that a couple of times now.
I think that's Pete's Dragon, not Puff the Magic Dragon. I think you're thinking. Are you thinking of Pete's Dragon?
I am thinking of Pete's Dragon.
Yeah, there's different dragons.
Because I'm singing through this song in my head, and like nowhere is any of this mentioned.
There's lots of songs in Pete's Dragon too,
to be
but
fair,
they're not
Pete,
as
yeah,
popular.
and Pete also, Pete is he was magic because he was invisible. So
right.
But you did say Puff the Magic Dragon.
He did.
Well, that's a different famous dragon
It's
from
a different
era.
Dragon. It's just there's two, and it's easy to get them confused.
There are two famous dragons, and it just so happens.
The creatively starved dragon artists of bygone eras
Yeah.
are not what I'm here to talk about.
Right.
And
There was a window.
Now I need to. Schwarber. Yeah, I think in general, I think there's just a little bit of I don't know, kind of like bittersweet sadness in his eyes and his statements every time people have been like, look, there's like a poster from some fans that are like, please resign with us, Kyle Schwarber, we love you. And he's just like, this is really great. This means a lot to me. And then just like puts it in his pocket. Everyone's like, yeah, do you want to say anything else though? And he's like,
I'm good.
Good guys.
yeah, I mean, and I let's just maybe like he goes to the Reds. Maybe that is like a thing. I don't know. I can see it happening. And really, the good news there is then like a bunch of money is freed up, and it creates an opportunity for new players in the new kind of like situation that I'm talking about. Like you're saying goodbye to the lion's share of your power, which you either need more of, or I guess abandon it entirely and become a different kind of team that just doesn't hit for a lot of power. But in any case, I can see, I really don't think it's a guarantee he comes back. I honestly think it's more likely that Real Muto comes back really out of necessity than Kyle Schwarber at this point.
Yeah.
Suarez is gone. And I think you see a little bit of churn in the bullpen, but Strom's coming back. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kerkering back. Duran's coming back, So I think the names I said are the most likely ones. Bader's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I could see them kind of doubling down on him because he is a true center fielder even when he's not hitting, and they haven't had one since Shane Victorino.
Yeah, I like the energy he brought, Liz.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the guys that they acquired. Like, I know that Duran is staying, but Bader should stay. He was a perfect fit for this team, even if they changed some of the personnel. It's more about his personality, I think. And he was just so good. Like, I would, it's really a shame. I think if he had been healthy, things might have ended a little differently. I'm not saying it would have wholesale changed the outcome, but it could have ended a bit differently. That would have us feeling differently. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm just looking for anything I could cling to that might mean that this would be different.
Right. In terms of who's leaving, I think Bohm is gone. They reported, I think Jason Stark reported in his article on Friday, they tried to move him a lot harder than they let on. Like, they really were ready to move on. I know, shock face, right?
Are you saying Rob Thomson called Alec Bohm and lied about the aggressiveness of the Phillies wanting to trade him? He told him, we're not trying to trade you, but there's interest in you, and we're just responding to it.
Yes, we're just reacting to it. I don't believe
subterfuge.
It's possible that was not a truth. It might have been a fib there. And I think Stott or Marsh. Frankly, if you're bringing back Harrison Bader, Brandon Marsh can go. Because if you're going to bring Justin Crawford up, you have Justin Crawford in one spot, Bader in another spot, and then you figure out, try and get another bat to replace Nick Castellanos, who will absolutely be gone. I would say right now, I agree with you, Justin. I think the odds are better Kyle Schwarber is not back. And I don't know that as valuable as he has been for the clubhouse and as valuable as he is with that place might need a little bit of different energy. It might need someone different to come in and kind of not rattle cages like, what are you guys doing? But just some brashness, like not Jimmy Rollins himself, but like somebody like that to come in and just kind of put like some fresh air into the room, because the one thing you can't do is come in and breathe that same air with those same guys, and maybe I'm not saying Kyle Schwarber is in any way to blame for any kind of negative vibes or anything like that at all, not in the slightest. And if they bring him back, I'll be very, very happy that they do. But it's a way to change things up. It's a way to kind of make the lineup look a little bit differently. It's a way to try and get rid of some of the streakiness that we see in this lineup. So I think right now I'd be leaning towards Schwarber probably not coming back too, because I agree with you. I think the sounds are kind of similar that he's not coming back. And I don't think Ranger Suarez is coming back. So that would be a lot of change. And then it's just a matter of like how you go about changing, filling those different guys out. And you're going to have to, I think, one of the things they absolutely have to do, and if they let Schwarber go, they're going to have to get 2 impact offensive bats because, man, they need somebody who can clean up on this team. Like trying to figure out who's hitting number 4 based on who had the last hottest 3 games, whether it's Bohm or Real Muto or Castellanos or whoever it is, like just who's been hot for the last 72 hours. Okay, you're hitting 4th. Give Harper some protection. That's just
it's like picking a defense every week for your fantasy team. Who's playing the Bengals?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So
yeah, a lot of notes you saw about the Brewers coming into the postseason was how, and like their success was how well they do fundamentally. And it's corny to say like, oh, they hit the cutoff man. It's like, well, yeah, you got to hit the cutoff man. Who's not hitting the cutoff man and going to the postseason? And then you watch a Phillies game and you remember, oh yeah, even when this team is winning 8-1, they still run the bases like trains that are off the tracks and careening through small towns. They still, dive for balls they're not going to catch. And like being in a playoff game doesn't change the approach that like, look, it's great to be aggressive, but like you're not aggressive, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of time, and that ball's rolling back to the fence. And in the postseason, that's costing you 3 times as much as it's costing you in the regular season. So I guess what I'm saying is one of the Phillies' big problems, and that I would love to see changed, is a team that does kind of like focus on and have accountability for not doing the fundamental things right.
The little things.
Like just being sharper at the little thing. Let's start there. This was a team that did a lot of small things right, and then graduated to let's bring in superstars. Let's get these guys who are capable of performing in those big moments. Because maybe you had like a lot of guys who are like, yeah, I can play well for you every day, but if I come up with runners in scoring position in the 9th, you can't really rely on me. So you bring in the Schwarbers, you bring in the Harpers, you bring in these guys. And I don't know, maybe the Phillies just got a little top heavy where it was like, we have a bunch of guys who want that big moment, and they kind of, when they're not hitting well in those big moments, then the team's just like, okay, well, we got to do the little things right. And they don't really, they don't. You certainly can't rely on the Phillies to do everything small right. They'll have streaks of base running gaffes, and we saw that. They'll have streaks of defensive miscues. We saw that. Throwing errors. We obviously saw that. So that would be an interesting new vibe for this team, was to be like, look more at the Brewers, who are this small, unsung team. I'm sorry, I'm just inwardly rolling my eyes at the cliche of it all, but still, that is what they are. And when you say they do the little things right, that is also a cliche, but it is also something that can be true, and it's something that is not true, I think, about the Phillies, not consistently. And that would be an area to kind of focus on when you're looking at more, perhaps, Harrison Baders on your roster.
I will say it is interesting, and again, I've been screaming about the fact that the bye week shouldn't affect teams. Maybe it does affect the Phillies, and it doesn't affect other teams. I mean, this is the 2nd straight year they came out of a bye and a week off unable to function. Whereas in the 2 previous postseasons, I've always resisted that.
Well, I think the difference here is that they should.
They should.
If they are incapable of doing that, that is a problem for them
without a doubt.
Solve. It's not like, oh, well, like we need to change, like how the Braves say, we got to change the system.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
It messes up all teams. No. It doesn't mess up all teams. That is a weakness of your team.
Correct.
If you come off a bye week cold.
Yeah. I'm not saying that it's right, and I'm not saying they should change the rules. I'm just saying I think it's a weakness of the Phillies, and I think that the going all out for the division title or trying to get the number 2. I'm just saying as fans with this group, let's not make that such a big deal next time, because I think we've seen, at least in 2 years, very small sample size, they've had the bye and played like horse dung coming out of it, looking like they hadn't played in a month. So I want to ask you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's better as a final thought.
I'm going to ask one last thing, because I think we'll get news about this one way or the other probably before we record again. Just get you on the record as far as Rob Thomson goes. Would you make a change at manager? At this moment, I would lean towards making a change at manager. I think you're not going to be able to change out a lot of the players. This is just kind of the nature of the business, right? And I know that Rob Thomson's had more success as a regular season manager than just about any other manager in Phillies history. But I do think there is some truth to the fact that he manages the regular season really well, and his mentality and his style and his decisions are what's best to get you through 162 games. And that is the most important, getting to the tournament. But for whatever reason, he has not been able to get his team ready to play in the playoffs. And what that means, I don't really know. I don't really know what a manager needs to do. But the messaging can't be, well, tough out last year, guys, but this year is our year, unfinished. But like, this might be, this I think calls for a situation where you need a new voice, where maybe the players have to do things differently than they did it under Rob Thomson. Maybe they have to change their habits. Maybe they're doing different things in spring training. Maybe they're focusing on different things than Rob Thomson had them focusing on. Maybe the communication is different than it was under Rob Thomson. I don't know what it is. This ain't working. Whatever they've got going on here. And I think one of the surest ways that you can change things up is making a change at manager. Could it blow up in their faces? Absolutely 100%. But right now, if the Phillies tell me that Rob Thomson is coming back in 2026, I think I would be more disappointed than encouraged by that news. Liz, let me throw this your way first. What would you do with Rob Thomson? And what do you think they will do? What would you do, and what do you think they will do?
Okay, I think they will keep him. I think they will. I don't think, despite all of the racket about people wanting changes to be made, and the Phillies themselves wanting changes to be made, it doesn't feel like they're ready to make that particular change yet. They trust Rob Thomson a lot, though maybe his actions in the playoffs should make them reconsider that. I would probably stick with him if it were me. For all the reasons I just said, but it feels hard. It feels like it's going to be hard to find someone. No, that's not right. It could be anybody. It just doesn't feel like the Phillies are ready to do it yet. And I think maybe they're right.
If you're in a position where you need to change things and you don't feel like you have a lot of buttons to press player personnel wise, then the manager is what you turn to. So I can totally see that happening, and I can totally see it being a healthy change. I mean, this is why I wanted Girardi gone, because a different voice was just needed in the clubhouse. I don't have any anger towards Rob Thomson the way I was ready to be done with Joe Girardi. But I think formally at the point where I would support him being removed. I feel like he would be given, as all managers who leave in good terms from the Phillies are, an opportunity in like the front office or something. I don't think he would take it, but I think that, they'd probably be like, hey, you want to be like some kind of assistant to the whatever? You can come sit in, like just get an ID badge or whatever, and you can still hang out. But I think he would just kind of quietly move on, as he was planning to before he was, the manager of a World Series team. Yeah, I would find it refreshing if they let him go. I wouldn't be totally disappointed, but I'm with you, John. I think I lean a little more like 55-45 towards feeling better about the Phillies going into the year with a different manager, just because change is needed. Sometimes even things that seem like they're working, it's not that you're changing it because it's not working. You're just changing it because change is required, and that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Change is required. The theme of the 2025 Phillies yearbook video, that'll be in stores at your Modell Sporting Goods coming in January, everybody. So make sure you get your pre-orders in now. All right, let's finish up with some final thoughts. The Phillies season is over. We are going to enter an off season, and so let this be our final thoughts for this episode of the podcast, and I guess the official end of the 2025 Phillies season. Justin, let me start with you.
Well, two things. One, there's an article on Phillies.com right now that the headline refutes exactly what we were just talking about in terms of Kyle Schwarber. The headline reads, "Despite crushing loss, Schwarber wants back in Philadelphia." That is on the Phillies website, and that is the headline. Then you look at the URL. The URL is different from the headline. The URL says Kyle Schwarber discusses potential return to Phillies after Dodgers loss. I am now looking through this article for a Kyle Schwarber quote that says something that would mean I want to come back to Philadelphia.
It would mean those words together.
I'm going to read you the entirety of the quote that Mark Lupica put into this article that has the headline, again, despite crushing loss, Schwarber wants back in Philadelphia. It doesn't feel good, you know? You just make a lot of different relationships in the clubhouse. You never know how it's going to work out, right? You just make so many personal relationships with guys, and you spend how much time with these guys throughout the course of the year, and they become family, and you just never know how it's going to go. How you guys doing so far? You feel like Kyle Schwarber's coming back to Philadelphia?
No.
Me neither. But these guys all know how I feel about them. I've got a lot of respect for the guys in here, our organization, the coaching staff, everyone top to bottom. This is a premier organization. A lot of people should feel very lucky that one night you're playing for a team that is trying to win every single year. How you guys doing so far? Hear about Kyle Schwarber coming back to the Phillies? Definitely. Me neither. And you have a fan base that cares. You have ownership that cares, and you have coaches that care. You have everyone in the room that cares. There's no other reason. We're all about winning, and it's a great thing. I think that's why it hurts just as much as any other year. Okay, so that's the end of the quote, and I can't help but notice that there is not a guarantee that Kyle Schwarber is coming back or wants to come back to Philadelphia. One paragraph later, the article ends, and that paragraph is full of people who could become new free agents that would replace Kyle Schwarber. So I think that headline might be intended for people like me to click on it and get reassured that he's coming back. When in fact, that is not what the article says. Second point, this is the first year I realized as we were talking. I'm actually very excited to continue watching the MLB postseason. There's some teams I really want to see what happens. There's a very likable, I think, remainder of the ALDS. You know, I know the Tigers organization has some awful stuff come out about it near the end of this regular season, and that's not what I'm rooting for. But the players on the field, seeing a Tigers, Mariners, and LDS go 5 games, and then watch one of those teams take on the Blue Jays in the ALCS. I mean, that is so refreshing. And like Cubs or Brewers playing the Dodgers. I mean, Dodgers are a boring playoff entry at this point, but like one of those teams winning would be very cool as well, and make for a very interesting World Series that, without the Dodgers in it, more importantly, Rob Manfred would hate a Blue Jays Brewers World Series.
Yes,
he would hate that, which is really good for baseball and me, and I would watch that. And additionally, sidebar out of this is the first year out of these 4 years where I don't like the Dodgers, but I don't have any visceral hatred for them leaving this. Like, it's not like everybody. It just never happened. There was never like an Orlando Arcia moment, or like the Mets, obviously, or the Astros, a hateable team already. I don't know. I'm not saying the Dodgers are particularly likable. I just didn't leave this playoff loss with just like a visceral hatred of the Dodgers. I'm more frustrated, just like with the Diamondbacks. I'm more frustrated with the Phillies than anybody.
Yeah. The Dodgers are very corporate, and that's kind of how it feels. And there's nothing to hate.
I'm not rooting for them, but like, there's no player that I was like, that guy really got our. I was waiting for like Max Muncy to have some kind of smart comment that was going to be like, I don't know. If somebody said something, I missed it.
No,
so,
I didn't see it.
I don't know.
I think you're right.
Well, and they don't have a reason to feel that way. They won. They won, and pretty decisively. So
yeah. Liz, final thoughts.
My main emotion coming out of this season is just like disappointment. It's barely even anger. It's disappointment, because it seemed like they were set up well to actually do it, and they didn't. And I thought it would be a very nice poetic end to the season, in which my grandmother passed away. But my grandmother, like so many other Phillies fans over their lifetime, will unfortunately not see this next World Series championship, and I blame the Phillies for that.
I'll also add that at the very least in this era, which I do think is over, we can call it over, of playoff runs, the Phillies never won the World Series. They did make sure that Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina, and now Clayton Kershaw all went out quite crappily at the end of their careers.
So there's a positive.
And there's some satisfaction
Justin
in that.
always
Kershaw's
lining. Yeah.
Kershaw is always, he's the only pitcher that they managed to hit in this series. Yeah. But it's very satisfying to watch a guy like Clayton Kershaw get lit up in his last appearance.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. We'll be back when news warrants. There'll be an end of season news conference at some point next week, and we'll certainly be updating everybody on any news that comes down the pike here over the next few weeks. In the meantime, folks, thank you for joining us here on this season of ups and downs. It was a fun regular season most of the time, and here in the playoffs, obviously a crushing disappointment. But we're gonna keep going because
Finish that sentence, John. Come on.
That's our lot in life. But want to encourage everybody to continue to subscribe and listen to the podcast. We'll keep you company during this off season. That is sure to be a very, very interesting one indeed. For Justin Klugh, Liz Roscher, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.